Welcome everybody. We've so much to talk about today. So if you showed up to talk about change in your life, then you showed up to the right place today. I'm very, very grateful that Chad and I were able to work out our schedules to make this happen, because I set these dates a year in advance. And then just hope and pray that people can actually work out on those dates. So it is the summer. Everybody's just getting back from 4th of July holiday. So if you're here, thank you for that. We really appreciate it. Little housekeeping. We're going to get that out of the way. We're going to get these slides off the screen so that Chad and I can just have a conversation. So I am Kimberly Mackey. For those of you who don't know me, if you're new to Head-to-Head, Head-to-Head is something that I was telling Chad yesterday. It actually started as a conversation over the phone with our colleague Myers Barnes. We all love Myers, and we were doing a deep dive on a topic, and I said to him, and I said, wow, wouldn't it be great if people could be a fly on the wall for this conversation? Like, this is just gold that we're laying down. And he's like, you should do that, Kimberly. So he kind of kicked me in I wasn't looking to create another program, but so that's how this happened. So I've been doing I don't know, I think I started in 2020. So I've been doing it ever since, Chad. So here we go.
Myers Barnes was the first. So when I first got into home building, I had never sold anything, never built anything, didn't know anything about anything. And I worked for a company, and he was the sales trainer for the company, and I didn't know what sales training was, and he was the guy. And I remember the first time I met him in Denver, at the corporate office in Denver, and he's like shorter than I am, and him and I were standing next to each other, and I'm like, this guy has the best energy of any human being that I've ever met. And if it wasn't for
it's contagious, isn't it? Yeah.
If it wasn't for him, I would not. There's no way I'd still be in home building, because he introduced me to home building, and he is the best of the best.
Reach the top in new home sales.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that. Were you at Richmond?
I was. Yeah.
I was at Richmond. That was the last company I was with. You said Denver. I'm like, that's got to be Richmond American.
The first company I was with was Richmond. Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Well, in 2007, they pulled out of the Tampa market, so they didn't need that pesky sales manager anymore. Despite the fact that they were actually my first client and hired me back to help get rid of that same wrong product, which was priced incorrectly in the wrong locations during the 2007 downturn. So that's how I got my start. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been doing this since 2007. I opened New Home Solutions. I like to say that I'm the person that people call in when they want sales to be the engine that drives the train rather than running it off the tracks. So I'm a management consultant and an immersion management consultant. So a lot of people think of me as speaker and trainer, and yes, I do those things. But where I work is on the consulting side to make sure that all the parts and pieces, all the systems and everything support your sales goals so that you can sell homes consistently and, most importantly, profitably. So if I can help you in any of that, please feel free to reach out to me. It's pretty much a niche. So there are trainers and specialists and lots of other things, but I don't know of anybody who's kind of walking and navigating this little area. And I do a lot with traction. And making sure that, the numbers will predict your future. So if we're tracking the right stuff and we're really measuring it, we know not only where we've been, but where we're going. So that's me in a nutshell. And I'm turned over to our guest because I'm super excited again to have Chad join us. Chad, tell us a little bit about you. And then I'm just going to launch right in and let you go ahead and start telling us about your story. Well, actually, don't tell us your story yet, because I've got one more slide, and then we'll come back to the story.
All right. So about me, I'm 6'8". I love romantic comedies. Notting Hill to me is still the best movie of all time.
Right? I love it.
I'm not afraid to say I love romantic comedies and long walks on the beach, and I'm a Capricorn. That's who I am. I'm just like anybody else, trying to figure out how to become successful. And by successful, I mean how to have a life of contribution, a life of fulfillment with the adversities that we face every day. And so for me, I'm constantly searching. You'll hear me say probably 30 times today that I'm just searching for another better version of me. I'm trying to upgrade to the next version 2.0. So that's what I do, and that's what I'm trying to help other people do, is realize their potential. And so it's selfish because I do it so that I can surround myself with people like that. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Are you training for a marathon right now?
Yes. So I do a lot of marathons. So I have a couple of races this fall. I have the Wine Glass Marathon in October. One of my daughters and I are running the New York City Marathon in November. I'm doing the JFK 50-mile marathon in the end of November, and then I'm doing my first 100-mile run on December 3rd. So I have 4 races this fall that I'm training for right now.
So I think I messed something up. I'm gonna fix this.
You did?
I don't know. I think I did. So, but
You couldn't mess anything up. It was meant to be. It was meant to be. Is everybody still there?
so yeah, I think they are. Let's wow, lots more people came in. So so hopefully they heard all that. If they didn't, they can catch it in the recording. But I just think it's so amazing that you're doing the marathons. I mean, that to me is just really, really cool.
It's a great stress reliever.
Let me share this last slide, because I would be remiss if I didn't do that, and let you guys know that coming up next, my next head-to-head event is on September 12th, and the one and only Roland Nancy is joining me. You never know what is going to happen when the two of us get together. So if for no other reason, just join in, because it will be entertaining. But we will definitely talk about what's going on in the market, driving the right kind of traffic for you, and give you some super ideas on how you can convert more sales. So that's going to be our topic when we get together on September 12th. So make sure you mark your calendars. If you haven't registered for that yet, if you didn't register for all head-to-head events, then you can do so from my website. And then just go to that head-to-head tab right there on the website. So that's it. We're going to stop the share. We are truly going head-to-head here. So thank you all for joining us today. And Chad, I got to start. People, your journey to me has been really fascinating. It's very inspirational. So let's get everybody off on the right foot. Oh, I didn't even mean that pun, but let's get everybody off on the right foot to talk about that and start talking about your journey.
It's I don't even know how to answer the question of what my journey is, because I can't even fathom that I'm where I am today based on where I came from. And what I mean by that is, listen, I came from I was raised by a single mother, an amazing family, amazing amount of love, but really just negative beliefs, negative victim mindset for most of my early life that really got me nowhere. And I had a shift moment. I believe shift stands for see how I find truth, the see how I find truth moment, the day I met my wife when I was my future wife when I was 24 years old. And since that age of 24, I've been trying to just live to what I said earlier, that next level of who I want to become. And so I was managing hotels. I happened into home building. Like most people, it's not a chosen career. It's like somehow it's like happenstance. You just end up in home building. I did really well. And then after 7 years of doing that, somebody said, you should come work for me as a trainer. I was like, I'm not a trainer. Like, who the hell's gonna listen to me? Which is crazy, because my whole childhood I had a real bad speech problem. Even to this day, I have this deep New York accent. I don't enunciate my words very well. And so what I thought was my biggest weakness, which was my voice, now is how I make money. And so I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to be a sales trainer, like a trainer, like there's no way. And the guy that I went to work for, he kept on kind of persisting, and I kept on saying, no, it's not for me. I'm not going to be good at it. This kind of negative mindset. And then something happened, and I just said, I need to kind of eat my own dog food. And I talk about betterment. I want to try things new. Just believe in yourself. So I did. And then I went to work for this guy, and then, after working for him a couple of years, I decided I wanted to do things my own way and started my own company. And 7 years later, here I am today talking to you, which is unbelievable to me.
great story. I mean, so, we often talk about, telling the story, but you had this catalyst, you had this person who saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I've had, I'm getting ready to celebrate my 50th birthday in January. And I
Welcome to the club.
so yeah, but you don't look 50. I look 65. So I'm getting ready to celebrate my 50th birthday in January. And about I don't know, a month ago, I started writing a list of the 50 most influential people in my life, the 50 most influential people that have helped me get to where I am in my life today. I'll literally start crying when I think about this list. And here's the thing: all of them, every single one of them, saw more in me than I saw in myself. And the idea of like there was one person, no, that everybody saw a version of me that I didn't see. And because I was so victim mindset, I kept fighting it off. And for the grace of God, these people kind of stuck with me and poured into me. And then I met my wife. I met who is now my wife after 20, we were married 23 years. And she never once told me what I should do. She never once told me who I should become. She never once told me what I should do. But I watched her, how she charted her life. I watched her how she lived with integrity. I watched her how she poured into a growth mindset. I watched her just believe in herself. And I was like, I want some of that. She never told me. We never, to this day, 24 years later, she's never once, not once, uttered a word of who I should become or how I should change or if I should change. But watching and being around somebody like that made me realize that I have so much in me. I'm capable of so much. And then once you find what you're capable of, that the worst type of suffering in the world, self-suffering, is when you know what you're capable of and you settle for less. Because you know the delta, you know that you're living below what you're capable of. And what she made me realize is what I was capable of. And I was tired of suffering. And so I've been on this quest to like shorten the gap, fill the gap. Like I want to get to what I'm actually capable of. And I'll spend the rest of my life, because I'll never reach my capabilities, but I'm always searching for that capabilities. And that's what I owe to her for sure.
What a beautiful thing. So, and I think the lesson is whether it's your spouse, your children, the boss, a friend, a mentor, there's somebody, find that somebody who believes in you. And like you said, you're not trying to compete with her. You're just trying to measure up to you. You're measuring yourself against you every day to shorten that gap.
It has nothing to do with her. As a matter of fact, the idea is that it's, if I said, I think I posted this on social media this morning, and I said, if I asked you to list all the things you love in the world, how long would it take you to name yourself? And for most people, you'd be way down there. If I said, tell me all that, I love my house, I love my kids, I love my this, and you go all right. But what surrounding yourself with the right people does, or at least did for me, was it got you to understand what self-love is. And for the first time in my life, I love what I see in the mirror. And I don't mean that physically. I don't mean that I'm 6'8" bald guy, but I mean the version of me who I'm becoming. And I think that when most people that they put themselves last. And I have two amazing daughters. We call the SPW, strong, powerful women. And if you call them right now and say, hey, who does your dad put first in his life? Before God, after God, they'll tell you he puts himself first. I'm unapologetically selfish with putting myself first so that I can show up fully for everybody else.
Well, if there's a saying that if you don't take care of the ship can't take care of everybody else.
That's right. That's
right. And obviously in this scenario, you're the ship. All of you're the ship. And I know as a woman, as a female, as a Southern woman, these are things that I've struggled with my whole life. So I was raised that women should be seen and not heard. And obviously I'm someone who doesn't do well with being seen, just seen and not heard. So, pretty goes away. Pretty is not what it's all about, right? It's that depth of who you are and your gifts that you have to share with the world.
Oh my God.
And it took me a long time to kind of come to be okay with that.
Yeah.
because there was always, so that programming that we have as our children, that as children, it carries with us, which as a parent, I wanted to make sure that my children, I didn't have that kind of baggage on them, that they can be who they are, and they are fiercely independent. They have not chosen easy paths in life. In fact, the kind of tough path, but they did it, that they're doing it the way that they want to. So Danielle just said, you can't pour from an empty cup. Amen, sister. You cannot.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. It's great. The whole idea, I was never certain of anything in my life. I grew up without a father. I was never, I graduated high school with a 1.6 grade point average. I barely graduated. I never went to college. I didn't read my first book until I was in my mid-20s. So I was going nowhere really fast. And so I was never certain of anything, except for I was always certain that I wanted to be a father. Before, when I was 15 years old, 16 years old, I knew I didn't even have a girlfriend, but I knew at some point my life's quest was to be a father. And so by the grace of God, I meet my wife, and we have two beautiful identical twin daughters. And from the moment they were born, my whole life's mission has been to, with that, as far as my role as a father, is to get them to understand that they are strong, powerful women, and that there's nobody in the world that can stop what they want to accomplish, as long as they believe in themselves, as long as they love themselves. And so they're 18 years old now, and it's amazing. It's amazing to see these young females that are absolutely dominating in their life, not dominating over anybody else, not being better than anybody else, just like living their life. And I think that that's, to your point, is if I program them any other way, if I program to think, unfortunately, there's a lot of people, like what you said, that grew up in our era, that thought you should be seen, not heard, right? And I think it makes me cringe to think my daughters would ever have to live a life like that. And so I think that, to your point about programming, we don't understand how damaging the programming is that we have throughout our life. And so I've made it a life mission to make sure that their programming is, at least from the programming that I give them, right, that they see themselves in a light of self-love. To me, that's the most important gift I can give my kids. It's not my love. The most important gift I can give my kids is the ability to self-love. Because if they can't love themselves, they won't love anybody else.
And I think that's true for all of us. And there's a beautiful lady that I have the privilege of coaching, and oftentimes she'll say, "But you don't doubt yourself," and I'm like, "Oh yes, I do." Every day, like, we all, and I think that's kind of where we have to start with all of this, is we all suffer from imposter syndrome, right? It's like, why would anybody listen to me? I don't, do I have it all together? Do I have it all figured out? And so I think for anyone listening to this, that's an important takeaway, that programming that you have gone through in your life, you need to be aware of that, and you can rise above it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because you take actions. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is from T. Harbecker, and it is, your programming leads to your thoughts. Your thoughts lead to your feelings. Your feelings lead to your actions. Your actions lead to your results. Therefore, just as done with a personal computer, by changing your programming, you take the first essential steps to change your results.
Yeah. Unbelievable, right? That whole concept, we talk a lot about this, and that entire concept is, most people just try to change their behaviors. They start at the behaviors. This is where salespeople, I think,
Right.
I'm a sales believer at heart. But most salespeople, forget salespeople, most people, they just try to change their behaviors. That's why New Year's resolutions don't work. Because on January 1st, everybody starts going to the gym, and they just try to change their behaviors. And they think somehow, if I just go to the gym enough, if I go to the gym, there's a theory that says 21 days to form a habit, which has been disproven 1,000 times, right? But they just try to change behaviors, but those behaviors are being driven by a catalyst, and that catalyst is a narrative. And the narrative is the programming and the stories you tell yourself, right? So if you want to change your life, you got to change your story. Change your life, change your story, change your life. And so the idea is, like, if you want real change, I couldn't just show up. I couldn't just show up and say, all right, well, I'm going to start trying to be successful. I had to start seeing myself differently. My self view had to be one that is a self view of worthiness, a self view of the ability to contribute. You said earlier, about, we all suffer from imposter syndrome. Well, every person on this webinar, every single person, I don't know everybody on this webinar. Most of them are here to see you. I've never met any of them. I do know Erica Lockwood, Drew Falling, and a couple other people, right? But the idea is that every single one of them has a New York Times best-selling book in them. Their life story is created to help somebody else out. The challenge is most people don't believe they're worthy of writing it. They don't believe their story matters. And I think the key is, if we can help people unlock that they matter, that their story matters, their life will completely change. But until that, nothing changes.
So true. It starts too with that self-talk. So, I was talking to my sister-in-law this past week, because we just got back from a family trip, and something had gone wrong, and she goes, "I'm such an idiot." And I'm like, and I'm like, "No, you're not an idiot." So instead, if you'll say to yourself, instead of saying, "I'm such an idiot," when something goes wrong, this is a place where we can start with this, and we can say, "Wow, that didn't go according to plan. Whoops. All right, now what can I learn from this?" That dynamic right there, just if you start to program yourself instead of calling yourself names, it's amazing what can happen, because it changes that perspective. It changes the lenses that you're looking through. And because we do turn into our self-talk. So that's the place we got to be very careful. We need to really guard that self-talk.
Oh, listen, every single human being, here's what's crazy. If we went outside right now and we were walking down the street and you saw people talking out loud to themselves walking down the street, like if you ever walk down the street and you see somebody like they're having a conversation with themselves, you'll like have a double take, right? But every single person that you pass on the street has a voice inside their head that they're talking to. And so everybody has this voice. And the question is that voice in your head, is it an ally? Is an ally trying to help you, or is it an adversary? Because it's going to be one or the other. And listen, most of our thoughts, so the human being has anywhere from, estimated from 90,000 thoughts to 110,000 thoughts a day. 80% of those are the same thoughts you had yesterday, right? So most of your thoughts are just the same, you're on repeat. Well, here's the most interesting study, is that 85% of your thoughts are negative. 85% of your thoughts are negative if you just leave your brain alone. And that's because we have this monkey brain, this prehistoric reptile brain that was only designed to help us stay alive. So it's constantly looking for danger. So your brain is in this danger mode all the time, which creates this self-talk to be negative, to be worried, to be cautious, to be pessimistic. And so the challenge is it used to be to stop us from like getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. Well, the saber-toothed tigers are no longer. The brain is the same, but the danger has changed. And what the danger now is the feeling of inadequacy, the feeling of not being worthy, not being lovable, not being rich enough, so the self-talk has changed, but it has the same effect on us. It keeps us where we are. It keeps driving us down. And so the key is to change those stories. And I still have, like, I talk about this every day. I talk about this, almost hourly, but I still have that same brain that wants to create this like negative output. And so if you're not careful, it'll dictate your life. And for me, I spend a lot of time changing the narratives in my head.
And it doesn't, you're right. It totally doesn't come naturally, despite putting all this good stuff in, despite making sure that I read positive stuff and that I'm following positive people and I'm surrounding myself with positive people. Those thoughts creep in and I have to catch them. I have to consciously be aware of those thoughts and not let them rob me of opportunities.
So true.
So
I think the key is to make sure that you recognize it, right? That you understand it. Awareness is the greatest thing in the world, right? Awareness gives us choice. And so if I'm aware that the voice in my head is sabotaging me, then I have a choice I have a choice to make. And I use this analogy all the time. I'll use it with you. I would love to use it with Carrie McCrone because this is perfect for her. But if you're going on a trip, right? So Kimberly, you live in Florida and you're gonna go to Niagara Falls, right? You're gonna pack up the station wagon, you're gonna drive, you and the family, you're gonna do this road trip to Niagara Falls.
I think you may have just shared your age, but yeah.
from Tampa to Niagara Falls is 14-hour drive, 15-hour drive. And so you pack up the minivan and you start driving. And you're about 4 or 5 hours into the trip and you get a blowout, you get a flat tire, and you end up in this ditch on the side of the road, right?
Oh,
I'm gonna give you a multiple choice question, right? You're 5 hours into the trip. Do you get out, change the tire, and continue on your path? Do you B, get out, change the tire, and turn around and go home? Or do you C, tell your kids, unpack the car, take up residence, we're living in the ditch. Like we are now home. Which one? Do you A, continue on, B, turn around and go home, or C, live in the ditch?
I have AAA, man. I'm calling AAA to change that tire and I'm going on.
Right. So
improvise, adapt, and overcome. I got to do it.
Perfect, right? So it's not always our fault if we end up in a ditch.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But it's always our fault if we choose to stay in the ditch. And we stay in the ditch because we continue to support the narratives. And this is what happens. And so something happens in our life, right? We come up with a narrative. We come up with a story. I'm an idiot. I'm not worthy. I made a mistake. I had a bad relationship, whatever, right? And that momentary emotional feel, what we do is we feed it. We feed that negative. We feed the story, right? And so now that moment becomes a mood. And then we feed the mood, and the mood becomes an attitude. And then the attitude becomes a personality. We keep feeding the shit that we want to get away from. And so when you end up in the ditch, the best thing you do, in my opinion, or what I've done, is I question it, right? And the question I ask myself is this true? Is it true that I'm an idiot? Is it true that I'm unlovable? Is it true that I can't be successful? Is it true that I'm too tall, too bald, too old? Is it true? And the answer, once you ask yourself this question, is it true? Most time you'll find out, no, it's not true. And then, so the second question is, all right, if it's not true, is it helpful? Is it helping me? No, it's not helping me. Okay. So 3, what if I had the power to change it? Well, if I could create a story that says, I'm not lovable and it's not true, well, then couldn't I create a different story? Couldn't I create a different story that says I am lovable, I am worthy, I can be successful, all these things? Like, we just have to choose the stories we tell ourselves. We question it, recognize it, and change it. And to get the hell out of the ditch.
It's always your choice. I often share that, stuff is going to happen in life. Other people are going to do things that you don't like. Your boss is going to do something. Your kids are going to do something. Your spouse is going to do something. Things are going to happen. You cannot control any of those things. What you can control, as you said, is your reaction to it and how you feel about it, and whether or not you're going to let it wreak havoc on your day.
Agreed. So good. I think that, to kind of turn to sales, I think, the market's changing so much, and we work with a ton of salespeople, and it's amazing to me. I can tell you, I'm not Nostradamus, but I can make a pretty good prediction right now that a year from now, there's going to be about 60% of new home sales specialists are still going to be in the market, still be in the industry that are in there today, right? 60%, 40% are going to go away. 60% are going to continue, 40% are going to go away. And I can put them in 2 different groups, right? I can put them in believers and non-believers, right? The 60% are believers, the 40% are non-believers. And the only narrative difference between the believers and the non-believers is the believers believe in themselves and believe that they are worthy of success and they can do what it takes to overcome any adversity that hits them. The 40% are people that do not believe they're stronger than the circumstance, that believe they're only as good as the circumstance, either on a conscious or a subconscious level. And so they're going to leave because their belief system says, I better get out now before I'm found out. These people over here, they've changed the narrative. They'll still have self-doubt, but they have such a strong belief in self that they'll continue on, and the riches will go to these 60 and the 40%. That's my belief in the next year, 60-40 believers, non-believers.
Yeah, this happened to me, or I made this happen.
Correct. That's exactly right.
That's the difference in the narrative. This happened to me is victim mentality.
Yep.
I made this happen, or I will overcome. Those are thrivers. They're not survivors, they're thrivers.
And the reason I say this is because that was me. I was exactly what you just said. I was the victim mentality, right? This happened to me. Why couldn't I have a father? Why couldn't we have a lot of money? Why couldn't I be smart enough? Why couldn't I be? And so all the victim mentality said enough times, you start to believe that shit's true. I actually started to believe that all those things were true, that it was somehow I was less than, which is so crazy because I'm such a man of faith that tells you, like, how could I actually have faith in God? I could have faith in God and actually believe that I was not enough. The two don't correlate at all. There's no correlation between those two things. And so right. The key is I had to change that thinking, I had to change that story. And the minute I said, wait a minute, this story, this victim mentality, I'm going to be a believer. I'm going to be a believer in me. I'm going to be a believer in God. I'm going to be a believer in my capabilities. Everything changed. Now, it didn't mean that there was like this yellow brick road to success. Somebody said to me on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, they said, Chad, you have quite a resume. And they meant it like they weren't, I don't know if they were complimenting me or just like whatever. And I started laughing. And he said, what's so funny? I said, because you just said, I don't know if you meant to say, you said, I have such a resume. And I think you meant it was a good thing, but I said, it's comical to me. Because if you look at my resume, it's 90% failures. It's 90, like line up how much time I failed, 90% of the time I failed. I've made the wrong mistakes. I've sabotaged relationships. I've had bad jobs. I've had like all this stuff. I've sabotaged this. But those 90% failings, every one of them had taught me something that have created the 10% wins. And so like, there's no, even though I'm a believer, there's no like this golden brick road to yellow brick road to success. And I think everybody's looking for a silver bullet. The only silver bullet I know of, and I've been searching for it, is belief in self. That's the only guaranteed thing that will absolutely get you to where you want to go eventually.
In the chat, I love this about, where did it go? Learned to live that way for years. I took words like try out of my vocabulary. So to quote Yoda, I either do or do not. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Who said that? They're smart.
That's Stephen. So thank you, Stephen, for that. Because Yoda, that little green man, he was very smart. Either do, there is no try, do or do not, right? That's
right. That's awesome.
And when you can, it's not easy. So what we're talking about here are not easy concepts.
Mm-hmm. It's easy in theory.
It's being very self-aware. It's that emotional maturity, that EQ that we're always talking about. And self-aware people have that higher level of EQ. They're able to have that out-of-body experience. So, and you're right, all of us have failed. So I was sharing with you yesterday. So about a year ago, on June 1st, I had back surgery. I was a millimeter away from being paralyzed for the rest of my life. And when I saw that MRI, it was the scariest thing that I've ever seen. The fight then with the insurance company and everything else, whole other story. Total fight, one of the scariest, moments of my life, because I'm a very mobile person. I'm on the move all the time. If I can't move, what would that mean for my family? What would that mean for me? It was a lot of self-questioning. Coming back from that, I did, and I share this just to give you a real world example of how this stuff plays out. But coming back from that, within a week, I had a speaking engagement. And even though I had to use a wheelchair at the airport and have them help me to get on a plane, and I couldn't take a suitcase with me because I wasn't allowed to lift anything heavier than a milk carton. I went to that speaking engagement. Having to do it over, maybe I wouldn't have. That was a lot. But I came back. I tried to change my behavior instead of my programming through this. And tried to behavior my way through this thing. Okay, if I just do this, if I keep doing that, and I didn't stop to change my programming. I didn't stop to learn the lesson from this and change the thought process. And it's been a struggle. I've been on the struggle bus for a year trying to get my health back.
Yeah.
And pushing myself to the point, not listening to my body. I had, thank you, Erica. She says I'm a trooper. So I don't know if trooper is the right word for that. It might not have been the brightest move. So it could have been a real setback.
Badass.
Yeah. So, but I kept pushing myself so far. I mean, I couldn't feel my feet. So I literally broke my feet because I just kept, so I had breaks in my feet. Like I just kept doing stuff because I was pushing my body. I wasn't listening to myself. And I was thinking, again, it was behavior focused. Okay, well, just go back to walking too much. No, I physically couldn't do it.
Yep.
And that was very defeating for me until at one point I went, okay, it's not about trying to do this and do this fast. It's about take the steps, give myself some grace. If I only am able to walk a mile in one day and not get my 10,000 steps in, I walked a mile today. Stop and celebrate that I did that.
Yeah.
And stop trying to push myself beyond physically. Just keep doing. And every day, just keep doing a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it's slow. It's painful for somebody who's a high driver like me to do something like that. But that grace is so important, I think, for all of us to be able to acknowledge that we have to give ourselves some grace because we're going to fail or we're going to stumble or we're going to not hit the mark that we've set for ourselves for that day on whatever activity it is.
Yeah.
And then just try again. Just keep trying. It's not about not reaching for your best potential. It's not about making excuses for yourself, but it's about loving yourself even though you didn't quite get there.
So true. So, and again, I can't use it broken feet, and I was like cringing, like even the thought of that. And
I don't even know how I broke them because I literally had neuropathy in my feet. I couldn't feel my feet, so they were just broken, and I didn't know it.
Oh,
Then when the feeling came back in my feet, I'm like, ow.
just horrible, just horrible. But
Yeah.
you know, one of the things we talk about a lot here, and we talk about this with all of our salespeople around the country, and that is divorce the outcome, fall in love with the behaviors. And what I mean by that is most of us are so fixated on outcomes. And what I mean by that is, like, think about it just in sales. Let me put it in terms of sales, right? So, you know, the best salesperson in the world is going to sell at best 100 homes in a year, right? Most salesperson across the country, they average 30 or 40 sales a year if they're lucky, but they work 265 days. Actually, they work probably every day, which means they're not going to be successful more than they are. Like if you count them by sales, if you count your success by sales. And so what happens is people get really high when they get a sale, they get really low when they don't get a sale. So they're on this emotional roller coaster. Well, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this because I'm a sales trainer. You're not supposed to say this stuff, but salespeople don't have 100% control of whether somebody buys or not. And so, you know, you can do everything right and somebody cannot buy. You can do everything wrong and somebody can buy. But our emotional well-being is always tied to an outcome for some reason, instead of putting your emotional well-being tied to the behaviors that you do every day. And so divorce the outcome, fall in love with the behaviors. Did I show up today? Did I do what I could, do what I can? Did I walk the half a mile? Did I walk this? Like, do what you can, give yourself grace, and put the emotional well-being, you put your emotions into things you can control 100% of the time. If I can't control it 100% of the time, my emotion doesn't go to it. My emotion goes to things, and good and bad, right? So if this morning the alarm clock went off at 4 a.m., right? So I have this alarm clock on my wrist. I set out to do a 10-mile run. Alarm clock went off at 10 a.m., right? I celebrated the fact that I got my lazy ass out of bed at 4 a.m. and went and run. Right. That's what I celebrated. Now
I would celebrate that too.
I set out for a 10-mile run. I didn't run 10 miles. I ran 9 miles, and then I walked a mile to the gym. So I didn't do my 10-mile run. But guess what? I was so happy and so proud of myself for getting up at 4 a.m. and doing what needs to be done, that it gave me the energy and the boost to do the next thing I need to do. So the key for me is, tie your emotional happiness to things that you have 100% control over. If I don't have control over it, then why, if I don't have 100% control over it, why am I going to get, like, if I do everything I can with this buyer and they don't buy, what happens is most people get down on themselves. Oh gosh, I could have done this, but and they just beat the shit out of themselves, and which screws them up for the next person. This like puts them in that ditch again on the side of the road. Tie your emotional happiness, divorce the outcome, fall in love to the behaviors that you do every day. Do the right behaviors, you're going to win more than you lose. Is my thought process.
And then find that silver lining. So if you lose a sale, stop. This is the problem. We just keep going and going and going in today's society. We don't stop. We don't reflect. We don't do what I call the postmortem, right? So what happened? Where did things go? Take the opportunity to learn from that moment in time, and then let it go.
Yeah.
It happened to teach you something. But if we don't stop, we'll never learn that lesson.
So good.
So whether it's the lost sale or you weren't able to, for me, I'm just celebrating if I get my 10,000 steps in. He's running 10 miles. So
but
I can't compare myself to him because I can't run 10 miles right now. That's not physically happening.
Here's what's interesting. So when you lose, you should learn, right? You should do a postmortem. You should sit down and say, hey, what could I have done differently? What did I do right? What did I have? Do a full postmortem. But here's the thing. You should do that shit when you win too. So when you win, you learn. When you lose, you learn. So here's what drives me crazy is when you see salespeople and they have a great month. They have 4 or 5 sales. And I say, all right, so that's awesome. It's amazing. Great job. I appreciate that. But tell me how you did it. How did you get those 4 or 5 sales? And they have this like blank look on their face. Like, well, listen, winning has a recipe. Losing has a recipe. The greatest salespeople in the world, the greatest people in the world, they understand there's always a recipe. There's always a cause and effect. And your life will forever change in sales and in life when you understand you're the cause and effect of the success and failures in your life. And so if I can understand what I did that caused what I got, either way, now I become my own trainer. Now I become my own coach. Now I become somebody that I can learn from. I can learn from myself on the behaviors I do. Most people, like, when they lose, they beat them shit out of themselves. They don't learn anything. And when they win, they're too busy celebrating that they don't learn anything. The key is always be learning. Always be learning.
I can't even get salespeople to count their cancellations. So I'm like, those matter too. We need to know why we had a cancellation. They're like, no, I don't want to talk about those. And I'm like, but
they just use there's a get out of jail free card now. Everybody knows it now. If you have a cancellation, you just say financing.
I sold 50 homes this year, 25 of them canceled, but I sold 50 homes this year. That's good information. We can all learn from that. So yeah, that importance of not only giving yourself grace, but give others grace too. Like, you don't know what's going on in other people. What this is the small amount that you know about somebody, right? And this is their world. That's like, right. Other people are not perfect, and other people have stuff going on in their lives, despite what it may look like on social media. I mean, there's your social media self, and then there's your real self.
That's right. There's the public persona, and then there's the private persona, and there's a big gap. I try to be as transparent on in social as I am in real life, but there's still a gap there. I don't. If people knew how anxious I am, or worried I get, or imposter syndrome I get, they would understand, most of them. And I try to show that, but there's a difference. So you never know what anybody. You're dead on. You never know what somebody's going through.
Yeah. So try to give grace. I mean, to me, if we're going to have a pandemic in this world, it needs to be a pandemic of love and grace.
Oh, damn. That was deep. That shit.
That's like that.
I would clip that part out right there and make that
right there. That's the clip. Yes.
Block me out and just say, we need a pandemic of love and grace. Like, that shit's a bumper sticker.
That's a sound bite. And I'm not very good at the sound bites, but really, of ourselves and for other people. My husband and I were having the conversation this past week as we were driving to Kentucky, and just how people drive and the difference after 9/11 versus the difference after coming out of this pandemic. And, after 9/11, there was this coming together. There was this unity of the country, and people would hold the door for you and say, please and thank you more. And they were more appreciative of what they had because they realized how close, we were to losing it. And now, you know, I don't know what happened. I mean, it truly is like something broke. Something broke.
Yeah.
So you know, but we can't control that. What we can do is we can be different. We can be that light
Mm.
in the darkness and shine that. So
You're either
you have that control.
You're either an energy vampire or an energy contributor, right? And so we have a very hard, fast rule in our house, and I know people have different opinions about it, but something I believe to my very core, and that is, you are morally obligated. You are morally obligated to leave any room that you enter with better energy than before you walked into it. So if you're going to take from the energy that's in the room, then keep your ass in the hallway. And so any room that you walk in, you should be contributing the positive energy. You should be contributing love. You should be contributing gratitude. You should be contributing generosity. All those things. If you're not contributing, so there's my daughters will tell you now, if they walk in the room, they know that they need to walk in the room to be an energy contributor, not an energy vampire.
Yeah, I always strive very hard. Now I don't always succeed, but I strive very hard to leave things better than I found.
Nice. I love that.
Sometimes that means having hard conversations.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to have those conversations coming from a place of love.
I'm telling you, you're on it with the love thing today.
I'm all about the love today, right?
It's like Valentine's Day up in here.
Oh man. So, well, I hope you're all feeling it. So let's talk about, and we got about 10 minutes left. So I want to talk about when people make a goal, like they've decided, I want to accomplish X.
Mm-hmm.
And today I told you, this isn't about sales. This isn't about home. This is about you. Mm-hmm. But if you say, I want to accomplish X, let's talk about what that map looks like. We've talked about those foundations, that programming, that self-talk, those things that you have to have before you can ever say, I want to accomplish X.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? So I have a different, I have a kind of a different mindset when it comes to achievement and accomplishments. But what do you think, what do you think most salespeople, if you ask that question, like, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to achieve? What do you think? Like, give me an average salesperson. What do you think they say?
Well, they usually go to number of sales. So when I'm talking to them, and but again, I'm talking to them in the context of a sales trainer. So they immediately come back to me and give me the number of sales that they want to make.
I want to achieve 50 sales. I want to achieve 100 sales, right? So I was giving a talk in Portugal. This was 5 years ago. And I was giving this talk, and I said, kind of a happenstance. I said I could run a marathon if I had the right mindset and the right belief system. I could run a marathon. Now I'd never run a day in my life ever up, at this point. This was 5 years ago, but I said it's kind of a throwaway line. I didn't think much of it. And then I got on the plane and I flew home and I was like, could I really do that shit? Man, that would be really good if I did. Like if I ran a marathon and I could tell people I ran a marathon, like how cool would that be? I'd get a medal. I could wear it around like Flavor Flav. It would be the greatest thing in the world. It'd make really good content. I didn't care about getting better or getting healthier. I just wanted the achievement. And the achievement was only for my ego. So I could say that I had it. And here's the challenge. And I did it, and it was miserable. It took me 6 hours. It was the worst 6 hours of my life, but I got the medal. And I told everybody I ran a marathon. I was now part of the 1% club that had run a marathon. It was strictly for my ego, so I could be seen as nothing else. And that feeling dissipates really, really fast. It goes, like, you set yourself up just for achievement, it goes really fast. So people say, well, I want to sell 50 homes. Well, usually that's tied to, because they want to tell people they want to sell 50 homes, or they want the commission of 50 sales, right? So instead of saying, what do you want to achieve? Because I believe achievement without getting better is solely for the ego, right? Achievement without betterment is for the ego. And so for me, instead of saying, when somebody says to me, well, I want to achieve 50 sales, I said, how about we change that question? Instead of saying, I want to achieve 50 sales, how about saying, answer this question for me. Who do you want to become? Who do you want to become? And they look at me with this like puzzled look on their face. And I'm like, who do you want to become? In sales, if we're talking about sales or we're talking about your career, who do you want to become? And they'll still look at me like I'm dumbfounded. I'm like, who do you want to, they can't answer that question. And so I pry it out of them and I say, I want to become a better sales professional. I want to become the tip of the spear when it comes to sales. I want to become a more consistent salesperson. I want to become a more trustworthy salesperson. I want to become a better relationship builder in sales. So if I ask myself who I want to become, it's a much different question than what I want to achieve. So, all right, who do you want to become? And then when you say, I want to become this sales professional, okay, now let's reverse engineer this. What does it take to become a better sales professional? Well, I got to be better at prospecting. I got to be better at this. Okay, perfect. So if I then set a path up of what it looks like, who I want to become, what it looks like, what it takes, well, the results will far surpass the 50 sales. And so the key is stop looking for achievement and look for betterment. Look for, this is who I want to become. In my marriage, I can tell you right now, I want to become a more present husband. I want to become a better listening husband. I want to become a better provider. I want to become a more present father. I want to become, and so I have a path in my life to become those things. If you walk in my hallway out here, I have 3 pictures. The first picture is of me as a little kid. And I had this horrible look on my face. It was the only picture I ever saw of me as a child that captured how I actually felt, which was miserable and broken. And I had this picture in my hallway, and underneath it says who I was. And then there's another picture, and the picture is me crossing the finish line for one of my marathons. I've run in the last 5 years. I've run 37 marathons in the last 5 years, right? And this picture of me, complete joy, complete fulfillment, complete love, self-love. And underneath that picture, it says who I am. And then there's another picture, and the picture is of my shadow. It's a picture that I took on an early morning run where all you saw was my shadow in front of me. And underneath that, it says who I'm becoming. Who I'm becoming is always right outside my grasp. I'll never reach it, but I know exactly who I'm trying to become. And so instead of focusing on achievement, focus on just becoming better, becoming the version of yourself or the person you want to become. Because if you do that, you'll achieve more than you ever will if you just set an achievement goal. I know that's a long-winded answer, but does that make sense? You follow me on that?
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I love that. So, I mean, it's the why.
Yeah.
So it's not the what. It's not the I'm gonna run a marathon. It's the why. Because running a marathon means that I have done X.
That's right.
It's helping me how.
It's helping me become. So when like the marathons, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run 100 miler this year. I'm gonna run a 50 miler. I'm running two marathons all in the next 4 months. And I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you. That is only part of the journey of me becoming a kick-ass 100-year-old. And the reason, and there's a path that I want to live to be 102. And the reason I want to live to be 102 is because if I do, my wife and I will celebrate 75 years together, right? We'll have a 75-year wedding. My kids, I'll be able to meet my great-great-grandkids. And so the version of me who I want to become is a healthier version of me, so I can be present for all the things that matter most to me. And so that stems from this idea of becoming who I'm meant to become, like this next version of myself. And so I never ask myself achievement questions. I ask myself becoming questions. Who do I need to become as a trainer? I want to become a more effective trainer. I want to become a more effective speaker. I want to have more I want to be able to contribute better. I want to become a better leader to the employees that work with me. I want to become a better husband to my wife. I want to become a better father to my daughters. I want to become a better friend to my circle. I want to become a better Christian for my faith. So if I ask myself those questions and then I reverse engineer, what does that look like? Well, it looks like somebody who doesn't pick up their phone when they're with their kids. It looks like somebody who gets out of bed when the alarm clock goes off at 4 o'clock in the morning. It looks like somebody that contributes to the well-being. Like, to me, now it's very clear. Did I live within who I said I was going to become today? Yes, I did. No, I didn't. What caused me not to do it? Great. Let me be aware of not to make that mistake tomorrow. And every day, it's just, did I become one step closer to who I'm trying to become? Is always right outside my grasp. One of my favorite quotes, and I forget the Robert Browning, I think it's the poet. It said, the version of ourselves should always be right outside of our grasp. For what is a heaven for? Heaven's always right outside of our grasp. And for me, the version of who I want to become is always right outside my grasp.
It's a shame that microphone is bolted in there, because that would have been a mic drop right there.
Yeah, sorry, I get emotional because it's so ingrained in who I am. I spent most of my life not believing I could become anything, and now that I know I can, Like there's nothing that'll stop me from becoming that next version.
And anybody can do that. You know, anybody can do that.
Anybody, if I can do this shit, anybody can, for sure.
So Eric is having goosebumps. Michelle saying that have the why, and yeah, that's the stuff when you can visualize. And I think again, a lot of what we're talking about is about slowing down.
Yep.
We get so caught up in being busy that we forget to live, we forget to learn, we forget to grow. Slow down so you can visualize. Slow down so you can figure out your why, so you can see what it means, and again, to become, as Chad said, to become.
Because I was in I know we got to go, but I was in Florence a couple of years ago with my wife. We went on this like bucket list trip, and one of the most impactful moments of my life happened when I was staring at the statue of the David. I'm in this museum staring at the statue of the David, and
Oh yeah.
I'll kind of edit the story for time's sake, but there's a tour guide, an art guide standing next to me, giving this tour, and she's telling the story. Everybody's looking at the statue of the David, which is just it's unbelievable. It's all inspiring, and the story goes that she this little girl pulled at Michelangelo's cloth when they unveiled it, and he asked her, "How did you create something so beautiful out of rock?" And he said, "I didn't. It was there all along. I just chipped away the edges." And what that meant to me was that I literally am in this museum. I start crying, and my wife's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I figured it out. This was me. I was born this amazing creature capable of all these things, but I encased myself in rock. Like no father, rock. No, not smart enough, rock. Bad mistakes, rock. Bad relationships, rock. Like getting fired from a job, rock. And I put so much rock on myself, I just became immobile. And from that day to today, and for the rest of my life, all I've been doing was chipping away the rock, chipping away the getting back to who I was destined to become, which was within me all along. I just didn't know it. And so I think a lot of us have to start like chipping away a rock. The challenge is we want other people to chip away a rock, and I can give you the pickaxe, but you're the only one who can do it.
I got nothing to add to that. That's beautiful. I mean that's incredible. So to all of you out there, go chip away at the rocks today. Make today, tomorrow, this week, keep going, guys. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And to all of you with the chat, thank you and for sharing. Chad and I will both go back and review. I know we missed stuff. If you have questions, reach out to either of us. We're here to support you in your journey.
Kimberly,
So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on. You're like, again, you'd be on the Mount Rushmore of trainers. And so I appreciate you giving me your time and allowing me to come on your show, because it's
thank you for joining me. You're
very
laying it down today, laying down some tracks. So
much love and gratitude for you.
To everybody. All right, everybody have a great day. Bye-bye.